Sodium is something that's very important to discuss as far as overall blood pressure goes. When somebody has a high sodium intake, and if they're salt sensitive, so to say, what their body will do is that salt will literally just soak up extra fluid and will cause that fluid to be retained in the body. Now, not everybody is salt sensitive, but typically as we get older, we get more and more salt sensitive, and that sodium can really cause more of that fluid retention, which in turn then causes more stress on the heart and on the kidneys, having to pump that extra fluid around and having to filter that extra fluid. Sodium is measured in milligrams, and sodium table salt is basically both sodium and chloride. About 40% of it is sodium, about 60% is chloride, and 1 teaspoon of salt has about 2,400 milligrams of sodium. So that's an important number to keep in mind when you're looking at food labels, because where do we get sodium from? Well, about 6% of it is added at the table, about 5% of it is added at cooking, and much of it is coming from added sodium that in processing in those canned vegetables or in that canned soup, the processors are adding sodium into it. And then about 12% occurs naturally from our dairy foods, seafood, things like that that just naturally have sodium in them. So a couple of things to think about how you can decrease the sodium content in some of our frozen and canned foods, draining any of the liquid off of the canned vegetables or any of our canned legumes, kidney beans, things like that, draining that liquid off. That liquid has a lot of sodium in it. Can potentially rinse it, however, you don't want to be rinsing away too many nutrients, so better bet is to go for the fresh or the frozen and not be rinsing away a lot of nutrients. And then really try to look at the sodium content of different foods so that you're really aware of where are you getting that sodium. 77% of it is coming from those processed foods, and then also obviously eating out in restaurants, very high in sodium. So some things to think about. Where do we, in order to cut back on that sodium to help with blood pressure control, avoiding added salt, avoiding any seasoned salt, onion salt, garlic salt, that type of thing, which is a significant source of sodium as well, and then any of our herb salts. And then choosing instead our natural herbs and spices. Garlic, wonderful herb to use in foods. Lemon juice, wine, different flavored vinegars, salsa, and some of those, hot chili peppers, things like that, if you like the hot stuff. Season your food up with other alternatives that don't have the sodium in them.